week we're talking about social capital. Okay? All right, who did the readings? Yay, good for you. Everybody has to do the readings. And then, so we read Putnam and Francis Fukuyama. Okay? And so basically, okay. I'll have to call her back later. Okay, so Putnam gives a broad definition of social capital, Fukuyama narrow. Okay? Who are my two discussants? Okay, what's your name? Okay, Miss Lee. And who's my second discussant? Oh, just one. Miss Lee, can you come up? Okay. 그냥 우선 이것만 읽을까요? So, okay. So Miss Lee, you read Putnam and Fukuyama, right? So, how does Putnam define social capital? Do you remember? If you don't remember, you can read that. Okay? Refers to?
I wrote it.
Okay. Yes, Robert Putnam's very famous.
He said that social capital means an informal norm that promotes cooperation between two or more individuals.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's basically like anything that helps people cooperate. Okay? It can be like for example, like friendships, social networks. But Francis Fukuyama gives a more narrow definition. Okay? What's the definition for Francis Fukuyama? Okay. So social capital.
So social capital refers to features of social organization.
So social capital is norm.
Social capital is norm or rule of cooperation between two or more individuals.
Okay. Thank you. You can sit there. Okay. So what does a norm mean? Rule. Okay. Emily? Right. So it's basically like a social rule. Okay. I need a volunteer. Do you want to come up? Everybody has to take turns. Okay. Why don't you come up? Yes. Because for this one I need to hit somebody. So she's very hittable. Okay. So for Fukuyama, social capital is basically a certain rule, okay? And there are many kinds of rules. There are very simple rules to very complex rules. The simplest rule for cooperation is, if I do something to you, you do something to me, okay? So I slap you. What do you do? No! Come on. The most simple rule is reciprocity. Reciprocity, right? So I hit you. What do you do? Yes, you can. You can hit me back because we know and love each other, right? So I hit you, you hit me back, okay? Or if let's say I help you, you what? Right. So there's a famous saying that I scratch your back. Right, you scratch my back. You heard that before, right? I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Okay? Because people probably really did that in the old days, right? And so it's called reciprocity. Okay? But there's also more complex rules, which is that, for example, like, are you Christian? Okay. But you heard of Jesus? Okay, so Jesus said, we want a different rule. I hit you. What do? You turn the other cheek. You make your enemy your friend. Okay? And so this was like a very kind of radical new rule. So it kind of changed the world. Okay? And so, and then some rules. So every rule makes a different kind of relationship, okay? So if you only have a rule of reciprocity, I help you, you help me, that means your friends are what? Your friends are only, who are your friends? So people who can help you, okay? So if if the only rule is reciprocity, we help each other, okay? Then you only want to be friends with people who can help you. Then do you want to be friends with Haji? Beggar? No, why not? Right, because they're not going to do anything to help you. So if you see some Kaji on the street, he didn't do anything to help me. He's not going to raise my TOEFL score. He doesn't speak good English. I'm not going to help him. Do you understand? That is reciprocity. So your radius of trust, your radius of social network and friendship may be very narrow. It may be very class biased. But imagine you're imagine you have this nice armband, and the armband says, what would Jesus do? Okay? So if you say you see this Kaji on the street, what would you do?
Take all my clothes and give it.
Yes, not all your clothes, but maybe your jacket. You give your jacket to the man, you help him up on your donkey, you take him to an inn, and you pay for his dinner and for his bed. That is a story of who? The good what? Right, that's a classic story, the Good Samaritan. That's what he did. Okay? And so that's what all Good Samaritans do. So I help those who cannot help me, because this is what Jesus will do. So I model my life on Jesus. Okay? So when you do that, you have a whole different kind of social relationship. Do you understand? Now, okay. The second key point for Fukuyama was that norms are only norms. For norms to make a real impact, the norms have to be what? The norms have to be, so I help you, you help me. That sounds good. That sounds like a good theory. Or or maybe the Christian theory is help everybody. But that's only words, right? How can I make words into practice? Well, you have to get people to act. You need to turn that into actions. Okay, you can sit down. Thank you. That's why I always like her. She knows how to hit me well. Okay, all right. So norms have to be turned into action, right? So for example, like in Korea, 옛날에 조선시대, right? You see all those dramas, right? The man, did they educate the woman? No. So people thought you only educate men, okay? Only men can be that guy, right? So Chunyoung was not educated. She didn't have a gun. Only men could have education and weapons, right? But but when Christians came to Korea, they said, that's not right. Jesus said, I want to be like Jesus. I want to educate everybody, right? But these are just my Christian ideas. How can I turn my ideas into practice? 어떻게? So how can I make Korea more Christian and provide more Christian opportunity for women? Come up here. All right. What's your name?
I'm Sian from the Netherlands.
Everybody say, hi, Sian. Okay? So Sian says you have to practice what you preach.
Yeah.
Okay? How do the missionaries do that in Korea?
They practice what they preach. So
How? Give me a very specific example. What did they make? What did they create?
I'm not very how do you say it? I don't have a lot of information on it, so I can't.
That's
speak
fine.
on
We
it.
can educate you. What did missionaries create in Korea to give opportunity? What? Right. They created Ewha University.
Okay.
Right. So they first created Ewha School,
Yeah.
and then they turned that into university. So they created schools and hospitals, so women can be educated. So that's how missionaries were able to turn the social norm into a social practice. So that's point number 2, that all norms, rules have to be instantiated in an actual human relationship. So this norm needs to be actually, you need to practice what you preach for this to for this to have a real social, like a social phenomena.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, so that's one example, right? Christians. But also you can think of the other example, which is like Confucianism, right? 선배 후배. How can you turn 선배 후배? How can you get Western people to do 선배 후배? You know what 선배 후배
I have
means?
no clue.
선배 후배 is hierarchy. Okay?
Okay.
So like what do 후배s do for 선배s? You have to what? Bow and follow, do what the 선배 says, right? How can you get Western people to bow?
To get them accustomed with your culture, to inspire them how your ways of showing respect.
But be very specific. If you want Western people to bow and call you master, you need to what?
Show them that
What?
you.
We just show them karate, taekwondo. You understand?
Okay.
You get that? You form a taekwondo school. Then you get all these white people, black people saying master, and 선배, like 광장님, and and like 뒤로 돌아, and you understand?
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that so Confucianism, 선배 후배 is an idea. To make it into an actual practice, you need to create an institution, like a taekwondo-jang. And so there are many taekwondo-jangs everywhere, right? Like Netherlands too, right?
Yes.
Right. And so, but if you enter a taekwondo-jang in Netherlands, it's like being in Korea. Do you
Yes.
see? It's
Yes.
much hierarchical, much more formal. Do you see? So think about social norms and how it can turn into social practice. And give me a very specific example. Okay? All right, thank you. Yes. Now, why do we learn, social capital? Because it's very important for what kind of countries, what kind of societies. Yes, liberal democracies. Because again, we need it for liberal, like free markets and political democracies, right? For example, like free markets, unless you trust people, you cannot have contracts. Without contracts, no free market, right? And again, if people cannot cooperate and trust each other, then they have to do everything for the government. But liberal democracy means that people can do things themselves. You form a strong civil society. So social capital is very important for free markets, political democracy. And so the obvious question is, how do we measure it? Well, and so the next question is, if social capital is important, how can you generate it? Okay? There's bottom up and top down. Okay? So the bottom up is what? So the bottom up way of creating social capital is like, what's your name? Seyoung. Like Seyoung and I, at first we were like I hit her, she hit me. I hit her, she hit me. Is that good or bad? Do you like hitting me? No, it's bad, right? My skin's very sensitive, all right? So people realize that, hitting each other is bad. So instead of hitting you, we should what? Yeah, we should help each other. Don't love each other. I'm married. Anyway, help each other, okay? And so people actually model this, okay? People found out that, if you have a simple rule of reciprocity, basically on a computer algorithm, you tell each actor do whatever the other person does. After like multiple simulations, everybody learns to cooperate. Do you understand? So that's a bottom-up model of cooperation. So reciprocity. But there's also top-down, which is that, instead of so a top-down would be like you have this large agency or institution that tell people what to do. What's an example? Come on, we talked about this, right? So who's a top person? Who's a really top person that tells you what to do? Who's the toppest person you know? What? Yeah, government, the state, or come on, who's higher than the government and the state? Yes, your mom. And Jesus. I don't know. Maybe your mom and Jesus can compete to see who's higher. Okay? But historically in the West, Jesus was on top, right? Jesus said, do this, follow me. And so that was a very top-down model, okay? He said, follow me, and he reshaped social relationships, okay? So that's a top-down model, okay? Now, what can the government do, okay? One view is that government cannot do a lot to promote cooperation. They can do like maybe basic things, like provide like education, police, to promote cooperation. But ultimately, cooperation comes from like religion and tradition, 전통, okay? And so like, you know, for example, like right now government in Korea, they want Koreans to, you know, to be nice to who? They want Koreans to be nice to anybody? What? You know, government wants you to be nice to who? Come on. So Koreans need to be nice to, yes, non-Koreans. It's kind of easy, right? Right. So, you know, the government wants Koreans to be nice to non-Koreans. We call that multiculturalism. You heard of 다문화, right? 다문화 and like 세계화, okay? So we want Koreans to be nice, to be inclusive, to make everybody feel they're part of Korea, okay? But is that working? Yeah, maybe not really, right? Like, you know, we had a student named Cherim last year, you know, he's 조선족, he's from China, and, you know, and people, and then, you know, whenever he goes on like internet, like 일베, he's a member of 일베, and 일베 people say all these bad things about 조선족, okay? That, you know, because what are the bad things that Koreans say about Chinese? You know, Koreans say, what about Chinese? Is anyone from China? Okay, so Chinese people are not here. You can tell me the bad things. Okay, so you know, so if you go to like social media, I'll give you the website. Okay, there are all these social media websites like 일베 and like DC Inside and like. They're not normal people. Okay, so normal people love Chinese. Okay, they're not that bad, okay? So anyway, so like if you look at social media, there's all these like, people say, you know, positive, but also a lot of negative things about Chinese people, right? They're like dirty, smelly, and they take people's organs, okay? You never heard that? I don't. Ooh, why you want to buy one? Okay. Maybe she thinks I can get one on sale. My lung's not that good. Anyway, well, because the Chinese government, they harvest the organs of, you know, executed prisoners. So there's been this rumor that, you know, that the Chinese take organs from like, you know, Falun Gong and all these other people, right? So I think these rumors have kind of spread. So like I had students who actually told me, university students, never lose my son when I go to Nambu Terminal. Because what happens if I lose my son at Nambu Terminal? You know, he might lose something else, like a kidney. Because, you know, at Nambu Terminal, there's all these Chinese gangs who kidnap, you know, lost Korean boys. Yes, I hope it's a rumor. Yes, it's a rumor. You know, so go ahead and lose yourself at Nambu Terminal. You're safe, okay? Anyway, but what can the government do to make Korean people not say that? To make 일베 people nice, to make 일베 people, I love Chinese people. What can government do to change 일베? Can government change 일베 people? Yes. Do you think that works? Okay, we can try, right? Do you think education is enough to change 일베 people? No. Yes. Come on here. Okay. She's saying education can change 일베. 일베 is this right-wing website.
Okay, I think that education is the key. Like, I don't know, it's my personal opinion. It's the key to everything, in my opinion, basically, because you can see it in. It works in other places as well. If you educate people, then you can get rid of ignorance. Like, education is the key to get rid of ignorance. And if you can make it fun for people to educate themselves, then that's even better because it doesn't feel forced.
Sure.
I think.
Emily, you have a question? Come on up. So Shauna's saying like education's the key. If you educate those Ilbe people, give them a good education, they won't say bad things about, foreigners.
Yeah, this is just an example. I'm from Sweden, and we just had elections. I don't know if you know that, but we had that 2 days ago. It was horrible, and like the racist party got so many votes, and it was terrible. And we don't have a majority government and anything. It's
So you're
actually
saying
terrible.
Sweden is not educated?
No, that's what I want to say. Like in Sweden, we have this debate about what's happening. Like, how could this be? How could we have such high ranking our racist party? We are very well educated. We have good like health system and stuff like that. What's wrong? Like, how could this be? What? Yes. Oh, yeah.
For some reason the camera keeps on tipping. Okay.
Yes, but maybe like that. But I think it's the same in all of Europe. I think people from Europe can know what I mean. Like, like France, you have this European Parliament and stuff. Anyway, if I knew the answer, I would be so happy. I would not stay here. I would go home and help them not to be racist. But I don't, and I don't think it's education because we have so many educated people. I think maybe it's a question of class. Like, yes, sure.
Building social capital.
I think maybe it's fear and the ignorance of their parents and their parents from their parents. Like it's so deeply rooted into their mindset that they cannot get out of that mindset. They're just squared in like a box. They're just one-dimensional thinkers.
Can you change that?
But I mean, but at the same time, I think
Take
it's
it away
also
from their parents?
also it's a society in itself. I mean, we have everywhere. It's really segregated. Like, I bet it's the same in all of your countries. Like, you have really like bad areas and stuff, and people think that there has to be because they're not from Sweden. I mean, they're not. They're educated. They know it's not because of that. I hope, but at the same time, they're just afraid. I think so too. They're really afraid about crimes and stuff.
Yeah.
They're afraid of crime.
I think if you have a certain guidance starting from a young age while growing up, it has to start with guidance, I think, and it also has to be yourself, reflecting upon yourself, like how your character is and how well you can reflect upon yourself in the world. So in order to check, I always say in order to check someone else, you always have to check yourself first in order to check someone else. So that's actually...
And also, like if you had somewhere in those like bad areas, you all know what I mean, you have both kids from that area and kids from like rich areas, and they could all be in the same soccer team. That would be really good, I think, and stuff like that. So civil societies also, but I don't know. We have civil societies. Something's wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Right. You can sit down. Let's have 2 more people up. You and you. Yes. Anybody can speak. Okay. Come on, ladies first. Both of that means you're both ladies.
Okay. I don't want to talk bad about my own country and my own nationality because I'm German and I'm English. But as I already said, I kind of migrated to the Netherlands, and that is because why I'm still there is partially because I find the level of ignorance, like these kind of things, is way, way lower in my opinion in the Netherlands. You don't think so, but I do. You never lived in Germany, so please don't. So. Yeah, but I'm saying in comparison, I'm comparing them, and it's way, 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 way lower. Like for instance, like if I'd be like in Germany, for instance, somebody would come up to me and they would ask me if I'm from Africa, and do I look like, there's nothing bad about Africans or anything, but do I look like I'm from Africa? No, it's ignorance, like because it's just like but nothing like that ever happened to me in the Netherlands, just because they're better educated and they know that look. If they look at me, I don't look African to them, like theirs just they don't know. So it's not like, I think, you have to also distinguish ignorance from racism, like there's like ignorance and then there's racism. Racism is somebody does something on purpose, like being mean to people or something with a malicious intent, but somebody who's ignorant is just they don't know better. So I can't even be angry at my own people. It's just that I don't want to live with them.
Right, just ignorant people.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, like just like, or when they're like, oh, you can speak so well German. Oh, thank you very much. It's probably better than yours. But you know, like stuff like that. And in the Netherlands, somebody would just come up to me and talk to me in Dutch when I couldn't even speak the language. You know, like I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not Dutch. Sorry. Now I can. But you know, like it's just for me it is about education, and then you have other things that influence it as well. It's not just one thing, obviously, because they also have like this guy called Geert Wilders, who's like really anti everything that's not Dutch, and like really racist and radical and stuff. And then you have people that don't like certain things in the politics, and then because they don't like this, they'll vote for that just because it's anti all of that what they don't like. But it's not necessary that they're for those racist people. It's just that they're not for that, you know.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. All right, thank you, Shannon. Let's get one more perspective. What's your name?
Jaspreet.
Jaspreet.
I think it's a mix between what all three of them said, because I think education can teach you to a certain point, but it's not all down to education. I know people like at university that are like, I know you said there's a difference between ignorance and racism, and I totally agree. But there are people that are in education that get all the way to university. To get to university, you have to be clever in some respect, and they're closet racist or they're racist. And I don't think you can explain racism or anything like I can't do it. I generally can't understand the idea how you can generalize a whole color or whether it's religion or whatever, and then hate on them because of it. It doesn't make sense. So you have to look at the person and look past that and think. It can't just be education, it's got to be something to do with upbringing or whatever you're surrounded by. So I don't think you can teach people, especially old people who have got that kind of mentality. They're stuck in their ways. You know, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sometimes you really can't. Yeah, but if people are already old, for example. Yeah, but when you're... It starts when you're young. It starts when you're young. But if you're educating people, so people my age, for example, we're well educated. But it's not just the system. It's people. So people that don't necessarily influence the educational system. So when you have a person, that's not the point. The point is you will still have that kind of mentality somewhere. It will come from somewhere. You can't ever kill it off. You can try. I'm not saying you can't try. You can try. No, you can try, but you can't kill it off. It's something that won't ever. I personally believe. I don't think it will ever go.
I grew up in the Netherlands, and I had it. I dealt with racism a lot while growing up in the Netherlands. So if I compare it with the people from Germany that I've got to meet now, I have to say the people from Germany are more friendly than the people from the Netherlands. Yeah, but no, that's the thing. Like your experience from Germany is different than my experience from the Netherlands. So that's what I'm trying to say. Is also what my fellow classmate has said. It also starts with the people. Like you can't change the system if the people don't believe in the system. You get what I mean? But is that what the system wants to see people portrayed, or is it how the people wants to see how people portrayed, or how it sells? You know what I mean?
Anyway, so if you turn this into an essay, you need a very specific claim, like like the media. Okay, that if you let's say the dependent variable, what you're trying to explain is let's say friendship or social ties between different groups, right? And you can say a key independent variable, a key cause is how the media portrays different groups. Okay, that's what Shana's saying, right? So make that your claim, and then give me very specific examples, whether from your country, whether from Europe or United States. You had a point? Come on up. Okay. Woohoo! Korean person. What's your name? Okay, say it. Hi, sorry.
Hi everyone.
Okay. Tell me what's on your mind.
Okay, speaking of ilbe,
Yes.
yeah, there are some highly educated people on ilbe, certainly.
Are you one of them?
No, I'm not one of them, but I heard it.
Okay.
And some are rich, some can be handsome,
Mm-hmm.
some can have certain good things.
Okay.
Most of people think that they are just stupid or not good looking, poor. That's why they go to ilbe and say stupid things every day. And I don't think that is why they are so aggressive against democracy.
Okay.
I think they just feel unfair.
They think like life is unfair, the system is unfair.
In some way, their lives are not fair. For example, this guy is highly educated, but maybe he's not rich
Mm-hmm.
and he's not good looking. So in a real life, he thinks he doesn't deserve things that he has to deserve. Then he goes to ilbe and Korean society sucks and I hate women, things like that.
You're the kimchi woman.
Yeah, kimchi, kimchi.
Kimchi,
Yeah. I think that's why they are doing that. So in our society, education is not a really important key to solve this problem. Instead, we can give them some outlet to explore their anger, that feeling like the society is not fair.
So you think that it's important to have free social media. People can say what they
Yeah,
want
in a proper way.
in a proper way. What do you mean by proper way? Like no bad words?
I mean, well, like in a real life, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
I my name and basically and everything, but
So
on the internet,
mm-hmm.
yeah, they are hidden by this internet.
Right, anonymity.
Yeah.
Right there, because they don't have to use their real name. Do you think it's important for people to use their real names on the internet?
Yeah,
Okay. So why?
it's
Because-
kind of anarchy.
Right. But then what is the benefit of using fake name?
Benefit,
Yes.
benefit. Like you can curse everyone.
Yes. Anyway, talk about that for 30 seconds. Somebody keeps calling me. I want to be sure. Twice. Anyway, I'm not. Okay. Because I deal with a lot of people were say like, okay, you guys all use internet, right? You guys all use social media. Do you think it's better to use fake name or real name? Who says real name? Who says fake name? Okay. Oh, it's actually kind of half and half. Why is it better to use? Well, the reason for using real name is that it's less anarchy. You have to be responsible for what you say. But what is the benefit of using fake name? New person. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
Hi.
Everybody say hi.
I'm Helen.
Okay.
Oh, I think the problem with ilbe is not because they're hidden under the internet. Because these days, these ilbe people they come out to Gwanghwamun, right?
Okay.
And then
Oh, that's why
they show their faces to people and they do actions in real life. So I think it's not because of fake names. And ilbe people I think some of people from other countries they don't know what ilbe is. Ilbe people are criticized because their actions are somehow not normal. This big ship boat, 세월호. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes.
several people they are died in the sea, like little kids, they died, and yeah, the ferry in the ferry, lots of like kids died. So their parents are in city hall, and they're like telling like the government to like, you guys have to. Right, it's not catching me. Yeah, it is. So like these parents, they are like keep telling the government to like the government should be responsible of this very case, and they have to like make some laws and punish people who are responsible for this thing. And then these Ilbe people, what they do is they go to the city hall and they like swear at their parents, and they like do really mean stuff. And like why they do this is because they think it's their justice. Like they think their justice to protect right wing in Korea. So this is why Ilbe people are criticized. Like what connection? Why parents are saying? Yeah. So Ilbe people think that action is like attacking the government, and Ilbe they think they're like protector of the government or something, and that's yeah. Yeah, so I think Ilbe people is kind of like similar to like neo-Nazis in Europe. They are very aggressive, and people know they're bad, but then still there are some people keep doing this. And same in Korea, lots of people know that Ilbe is bad, but then these people are keep doing this. So I think education should be not on them, but like other people, like non-Ilbe people should be more educated, and they should be like kept told Ilbe is bad. So like like if we keep these bad people on minority, the majority will be still good. So the society will be still like sustainable. What? I don't
They're
know.
one of the largest websites in Korea. I think if you look at humor websites are number one. And then there's actually surveyed urban people. I did a Google survey, and then well, because the question is, what should government do, right? What should government do to promote trust and cooperation among different kinds of people? Okay. And then one answer is that government should have more strict regulation and more strict kinds of promote certain kinds of education. That's one way, right? But another way is that government should promote more freedom. That if you allow people to say what they want and communicate, that's democracy, that's actually better education. So let people who do not like Korea for any reason, thank you, let them express themselves, and so other people can understand. So for example, like when I when I did a Google survey and I talked to like Ilbe people, like how come you don't like Joseonjo? One of the things they say is that, well, many Joseonjo come to Korea and they receive all the benefits without the obligation. So for example, like, Korean men, you have to what? You have to join the army, right? Like Sam, right? But, many Joseonjo men, when they come to Korea, they do not have to serve because they're Chinese citizens. But because they're ethnic Koreans, they get this special visa to work in Korea. So they get all the money and the benefits of being in Korea without the cost. So many Ilbe guys, they're Korean men, they think that's unfair. They think the system is unfair. Okay? They think the system benefits, foreigners and women, but it hurts Korean men. And so this is actually, for them is a valid concern. And by using Ilbe, by using social media, they can communicate that. Why society is unfair. And maybe as a democracy, maybe we can use that kind of communication to try to make the society more fair. Do you understand? So maybe, one example might be that, if you come to Korea and you get all these benefits, maybe maybe you should like contribute more, do some more obligations. But, I think that's an important conversation. So one question, so that's one method. How can government promote social capital? Maybe either have more open social media or have more closed social media. You can write your essay on that topic. Okay. Another fun thing is that personally, like I love duck. Okay, you know what duck is, right? Yes. And then in the old days, I remember like when we moved to like a new apartment, you have to what? You have to share duck with all your neighbors, right? Do you still do that when you move? When you moved to Wangchimli, you gave duck to everybody in Wangchimli? No, why not? Okay, so he lost that social capital. Okay, in a small city like Jinju, everybody gives duck when you move to a new place. Maybe at Wangchimli, no. Okay, so what can government do? Maybe government can, I don't know, subsidize duck or something. Do you understand? But government can try to do things to like promote, social capital. Okay. One thing that we do in Chicago is that we don't have free duck, but we do have free martial arts classes. So if you go to Chicago Park District, every major park in Chicago, they offer like free like karate and taekwondo classes, because government thinks this is a good way to promote like social norms, social values among young people, like Jiro Dora, right? So, those are different ways that government can promote social capital. And maybe government cannot create a new religion, but they can actually import religion. Do you understand? So in the Korean case, in the 19th century, the first religious group to come to Korea was like the Catholics, right? The first Western religion. And then do you remember what happened to the Catholics? Yeah, well, they were killed. They're persecuted and martyred. Thousands of them were they're like killed, right? And then later the governments changed their policy and they said, okay, we will allow missionaries in. And so by allowing missionaries to come in, they introduced a new religion to Korea, and that's how you created like Yonsei and Ewha universities. So one way that government can change the social capital is by introducing like new religions, new cultures to Korea. Okay, so that's one example. Another example, when you come to the gay church with me, is that a lot of this like gay culture in Korea is almost like imported. Okay, because in the old days, if you were gay, what did you do? You didn't do anything. You just married and had kids. Okay, but now people realize that there's a new way to live. I don't have to just marry and have kids. Okay. And so, because they're watching like Will and Grace and, Sex and the City, and they're realizing there's new cultures out there. Okay? So I think, globalization, government can decide whether to open and, be open to globalization like South Korea, or to be close to globalization like North Korea. So these are things that governments can actually decide. Okay? Okay. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, again, so these are big ideas, right? So you need to write very specific essays. And by specific essays, I always ask you to start with a specific example. Always think of a specific example and then use that example to generate your argument, to generate your essay. Okay? So one example is a projector on. Okay. So since we always talk a lot about the Netherlands, I thought we can compare Netherlands versus Korea. Okay? Okay? And then we had the big financial crisis, right? In the Netherlands, did they do a lot of demo and, blame the government for Sewer crisis? No, they didn't do that in the Netherlands. So actually in the Netherlands, when there was a big crisis, financial crisis, all the major parties, they worked together. They formed an agreement. Okay? Not like, it's very different from Korea. So So there's a, for example, like this country has always paid its debts, and the government needed to press ahead with austerity to bring our finances under control. Okay, so so all the major parties and the citizens were willing to sacrifice. Okay, and they said this tradition of compromise and cooperation, it comes from like tradition because Netherlands, there's a lot of like dikes, right? Yeah, dikes and dams. So there's a lot of water, okay? You know what a dike is, right? It's like a big dam, okay? And so the people need to work together to maintain the dike, the dam, or what happens to their village? Yeah, it gets flooded. Okay? So the people have a tradition of we need to work together or we're gonna all have to swim. Okay? And so this tradition, this tradition still resonates in Netherlands today. That we have to work together or we're all gonna drown. Okay? And so the government and the people work together, and the people for the most part trust the government, right? So there's a high level of trust. Okay? So you can talk about that example and think about why is there a high level of trust in Netherlands but very low trust in Korea? Okay? And so like there are many examples of lack of public trust in Korea. One was the mad cow disease. Have you heard about that? So they said like, don't eat that hamburger. It'll make you mad, crazy. Okay? Did you hear about that? Okay. And so government said, American beef is safe. But a lot of Koreans said, no, it's going to make you crazy. Was that you? Somebody in social media. They were anonymous. So I didn't know who it was. But it was a lot of people in social media were saying, if you eat American beef, you're going to go crazy. Was that you? No. Okay. All right. You say, no, it's not me. All right. But a lot of people were saying that. Did you guys, do you remember? Okay. Did you believe or did you not believe that? Okay, you didn't believe, okay? But some people believed, okay? More recently, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about the 세월, right? That, that some of the moms are saying like, oh, we wanted to save, that, there's actually people like they're banging on the door, right, of the boat. There are people alive inside, but the government's not saving them. So there's all these theories, right? And then, did you believe in the conspiracy theory that there's people still alive in the boat? No. Okay. Why do people make those theories? Anybody? Maybe some sense of hope. Okay, right. But then a lot of the rumors are very like anti-government. They're saying the government leaders, they're buddies with the owners of the ferry, and so that's where they're kind of suppressing the evidence. Okay. So there's a lot of like suspicion, a lot of distrust. Yes, Emily? Lot less. Americans trust their government a lot less than they used to, and it seems like the ones who do not trust their government, they're the ones who are kind of making up all these theories. Okay, but then maybe but again, this goes back to social media, right? Do you think it's important? Do you think those people with these theories should have the freedom to share those theories or not? Okay. So maybe, I think that can actually be a very good essay topic. Should the government regulate? Some governments like Singapore, obviously North Korea, they heavily regulate social media. Same thing with China, right? But other governments, such as maybe like, South Korea, Netherlands, is pretty free, or is it very regulated? Okay, it's very free. Yeah. So other governments think, no, freedom is better. Okay? That there's always good information and bad information, and in a free marketplace, the good information beats the bad information, right? So again, tell me, right? we can actually link this to. Yeah, there was a very good interview with a Japanese professor about the media and how the media promotes either cooperation or conflict between different Asian countries. So we can read this together. Okay. I need a volunteer. Is anyone from Japan? No. All right. Cool. Does anyone want to practice their English? Come on, what are you here for? Okay, I need a new person. Can you speak English? Not really? You can try. Come on. Yes, use your chance. Yes, we believe in you. All right. Okay, what's your name?
정남현.
Everybody say, hi, Mr. Zhang. We believe in you. Yes, you can. Si se puede. That's Spanish. Yes. Just your English can be bad. That's fine. Just smile. Yeah, smile. Okay. And your English is okay. Okay. You be the question. I be answer. Okay. All right. So basically this is Asahi Shimbun. It's the liberal newspaper in Japan, and it's interviewing a very liberal Japanese professor. Okay. Question. You have raised alarm. Can you read that? You have? Yes, read it.
You have raised alarm about the growing unhealthy nationalism among Japanese. Why?
Right. Why? Who wants to be the Japanese? I need another Korean. Yes, come on up. So imagine you are 기자, reporter. You are the 교수. So you're supposed to be 똑똑해. Okay? All right. Now, yes, it is increasingly
the case that people who advocate patriotism and Japanese pride attack the attitudes of others who try to reflect on the past war that Japan waged on its neighboring countries as masochistic.
Help her. How do you say that word?
Masochistic. They fail to understand the basic point that Japan's incredible post-war recovery and prosperity have been achieved through our continuous efforts, whose starting point was our serious reflection on the war.
Oh.
So the professor is saying that one reason why Japan has become a great country is because we have seriously reflected on the war, and we have made a lot of changes. That we're no longer a warlike nation, we're much more pacific. We have learned from the past. Okay? But things are a little changing now. Okay? Okay. So for example, like the Shinsaku. Okay? Question. Reporter, ask this. What do you think?
What do you think is the factor allowing that trend?
Okay.
Japan was long the world's #2 economy in the terms of GDP, but it was surpassed by China, which has strengthened its military power accordingly. As China has also strengthened hardline attitudes towards Japan over the territorial dispute involving the Senkaku Islands, it has stirred anxiety among the Japanese public. But it must be remembered that the current diplomatic row over the Senkaku has its roots in former Tokyo Governor Shintaro Ishihara's announcement of his plan to purchase some of the islands in a provocative manner. His move has prompted the central government to purchase the islands, which was perceived by China as a sign that Japan sought to change the historical status quo regarding the status of the Senkakus. In response, Chinese leadership started to vehemently condemn Japan, which has in turn further prompted anti-China sentiments among Japanese. South Korea's economic advancement in recent years and the comfort women issue have also been responsible for stirring up unhealthy nationalism in Japan. Samsung and LG have been driving up Panasonic and Sony in the consumer electronics market across the world, which hurts Japanese pride. The South Korean government and media have exacerbated Japanese people's distrust by harshly criticizing the Japanese attitude over the comfort women issue. On this issue, there have been various misunderstandings, not only in Japan but also in South Korea. Yet South Korea has just kept attacking Japan without seeking to correct misunderstandings on their part. This is turning off even those Japanese who have been relatively sympathetic towards South Korea. On the other hand, I believe Japanese media bear huge responsibility for creating this unfortunate situation. The media have tended to create a confrontational debate by pitting advocates of patriotism and Japanese pride against intellectuals arguing Japan still needs to seriously reflect on the war. Post-war Japan has built a prosperous, peaceful, and highly safe society, which is highly admired by other nations. This post-war development is an achievement and we should be proud of, but the media have focused on the pre-war and wartime history of Japan as they want to ratchet up the black and white patriotism versus reflection debate. I believe this media sensationalism has greatly contributed to the emergence of an unhealthy nationalism among Japanese citizens.
Thank you. Yay. Okay, so you're the Kija, you say, thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you. Yay. Okay, see, English is fun. All right, so let me show you the picture of the nice professor. His Yasukami Onam. Okay. No, it's not this one. Okay. His name is Yasuaki Onuma. Okay. Alright. So basically, what's the professor saying? He's saying that right now there's high social capital or low social capital in East Asia. Very low social capital, there's very little trust. And who does he blame for that? He's saying it didn't just come naturally, right? It came from media and also governments, politicians. That politicians in China and like the Sansaku, there was a right-wing politician who wanted to buy the islands, so the Japanese government intervened, and then the Chinese government had a misunderstanding. They thought the Japanese government was acting bad, so they attacked Japan. And the Chinese and Korean politicians also attacked Japan. And so this makes Japanese people feel very they lose pride. So they get very angry. That's number one. And number two is the media. The media, they like confrontation. So they play like the patriots versus the reflectionists. Okay? Instead of having a more, moderate discussion. So he's saying that, this is what's happening in Japan, right? So you can think about, what is there something similar happening in Korea? Like, is the media promoting is there media promoting anti-Japanese nationalism in Korea? Do you see? So for example, when they talk about Japanese people, do they talk about professors like him? Or do they only portray those really bad Japanese? Do you understand? Or do they really talk about the good Japanese? Okay? So you want to keep that into account. Because actually I think that when I read Japanese newspapers and Korean newspapers, Japanese newspapers seem to be a lot more balanced. They have many interviews by people like him. So like Professor Y.O. Okay, Yasuaki Onuma, right? So they interview professors like Yasuaki, who says, who presents a very balanced view, okay? But whenever I read about the comfort women issue in Korea, it's always like Japan's bad. That's number one. And also another thing is that, Korean newspapers, they rarely talk about the bad things that the Korean government did, with respect to the comfort women issue. For example, this was an article that was written by Reuters News. Anyone heard of Reuters? That's Western or Korean? Yeah, it's Western newspaper, right? American newspaper. Anyway, so Reuters wrote an article about comfort women in Korea. Okay? And then it was eventually included in the Korea Herald. Okay? And so this case is at US base, Korean ex-prostitutes face eviction. Okay, so in the 1950s, there were many so-called comfort women who served who? Who served what soldiers? There were many what kind of men from foreign countries at that time? Yes, American. So there are tens of thousands of American soldiers. And the Korean government, they wanted the soldiers to be happy, and they also wanted their money. So the Korean government recruited thousands of Korean women to serve as comfort women. There was a euphemism, right? There was a nice term, comfort, to serve the American soldiers. Okay? But have you heard about these women before or no? Okay? But most Korean school children have never heard about the comfort women in Korea. Okay? They only read about the comfort women who served Japan. But they never read about how the Korean government organized comfort women for the American soldiers. And so these were tens of thousands of women, and they made a lot of money for the government. At one point, the comfort women, they made up 25-30% of the Korean GDP. So 25-30% of the Korean GDP came from the comfort women. So it was their money that helped create Korean economy. Do you understand? But today they're basically ignored. And once you work as a prostitute, as a comfort woman, can you go back to your hometown? No, you cannot go back. You're permanently stigmatized. Okay? So the women who worked in the camp towns, they're still in the camp towns 50 years later because they have nowhere else to go, and they get very little support from the government or society. And right now they're kind of in a crisis because the Yongsan base is being closed down. Why is the Yongsan base being closed down? Because a lot of Koreans, they don't want the American soldiers in Seoul, right? So so a lot of Koreans say we don't want the American bases in Seoul anymore. So they're being kicked out to Pyeongtaek. Okay, but that means that a lot of the comfort women, they're gonna lose their homes because they've been living there for over 50 years. They have nowhere else to go. And so their situation is very different from the comfort women who served Japan. The ones who served Japan, they get very nice money, pensions, and free house from the government. But the comfort women who served American soldiers, they get none of that. Because this is kind of like a shameful history for Korea. This story makes who look bad? No, this story makes Americans and especially Korean government look bad. Do you understand? And so a lot of the Korean media, they're very nationalist. They don't want to report on stories that make Korea look bad. Yeah, it's kind of like saving face in a sense. And so this story had to be written by Americans. Do you understand? Yes. Why don't you come up? You can both come up. Come on up. You're nice. You too, Professor. Okay.
These two cases are totally different, and they cannot be compared because
Why?
because we're under Japanese. Korea was Japanese colony, so these women, they were forced to go to Japan, and they were tortured, and they got killed, and this is fact. Many got money, but they got killed. And when they become pregnant, they killed this woman really very violently. And then there are lots of evidences showing them. And then these grandmothers from Japanese, right?
Let's say that's all true.
Yeah, that's.
So you're saying that comfort women for American soldiers were never killed or became pregnant?
Well, they could be, but then it's these women were they volunteered for this American soldier, but then for the Japanese colony, they didn't volunteer, right?
Well, you have to think about it.
Yeah.
Do you think women are willing to volunteer to become comfort women for American soldiers? No. Why do they do it? say that a lot of maybe the motivation for a lot of the women was the same. So the women who a lot of them were actually very poor, and so they were. So you can actually. I'm saying you can actually read like the historical case studies. No, I'm not saying you can say that yes, a lot of women were maybe a lot of women were pulled into like serving as comfort women, or maybe they did it out of economic desperation. But a lot of the same motivation for the comfort women and American soldiers too. My only point is that we get a lot of information about the victimization of the women, the comfort women for Japan, but we hear very little about the victimization of the women in the American case. And in many ways, like the number of women who served American soldiers may have been higher, and the number of women who were killed by soldiers from America may actually have been higher than the soldiers in Japan. And so I'm just saying that think about why the media treats one case one way, and a lot of publicity, but another case another way, very little publicity. Okay, so I'm not here to say like what Japan did was good. But the only thing I'm saying is that this is something that is never covered in Korean media. That it was actually Reuters who had to report this story that all these harmonies are being kicked out of their homes.
I mean, I don't know if the education has changed in elementary school or middle school, but we as a child, we learned it in school, in textbooks, I think. About it, yes. Yes, we did. So, just correction to your...
Now you don't like America? Anyway, so... Yes? Mm-hmm. I think maybe like educated Americans, right? Well, because like there was a lot of like relationships between American soldiers and Korean women, and that kind of jump-started like mass migration to the United States. So the women who had relationships with American men, they can never, they felt they cannot go back to their Korean society, so they ended up just going to America. So more than 50,000 Korean women married American soldiers, and they were the first like major migration wave to the United States. And then they later invited their friends and relatives to come. Okay, but these kind of things often happens when like you have this major power coming to a poor country. So like a couple of years ago, I had a student from South Asia, Pakistan, and he also told me about how like many South Asian women worked as comfort women for the British, and this is something that everybody kind of knows, but it's something that is still a sensitive topic, and the British have never apologized for what happened, but they still managed to just move on. Anyway, so the point is that the professor is saying that the media, the governments, they do a lot of things to promote conflict. Okay, and he's saying that maybe governments and media can present a more balanced side. That yes, the other government did bad things, but it's not all bad, and maybe we did bad things too. So by presenting a more balanced picture, we can form like cooperation. You understand? So the Japanese professor is saying like I want balance, but right now like the South Korean media, the Chinese media, it's always like Japan's like 100% bad. So it provokes this kind of nationalist reaction. So he wants both countries, he wants all the countries, the media from all the countries to be a little bit more balanced. So that's his claim, that if you want to promote social capital, governments and media, they have to promote a more balanced perspective. Okay? Like Reuters. Okay, so what happened to the recording? Okay, we recorded all that. Okay, any questions? Yes. Why don't you come up? Let the internet know what you're curious about. What are you curious about?
I'm just curious about the American case.
Okay.
About
Sure.
the was that the Korean government forced the Korean women to go to the American U.S. Army to go for?
Well, the Korean government recruited. Okay.
Yeah.
But and the women, you know, and they took the job. But the controversy is that when you're like desperately poor, it doesn't feel like you're doing it voluntarily. It's like you have no choice.
I think that's why the media don't want to cover that case, because in the Japanese case we are victims and they were not like human beings and what they are doing, but in American case the government wasn't forced, but government what can I say? Government helped
the woman
to go. So there was connection between media and government. So
okay.
I think they won't cover the case. So that's why there was any kind of the articles
Okay.
about it.
Sure. And then you can say like, you know, there's a similar example where like, you know, there are like Korean soldiers committed many like sexual crimes in Vietnam.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the problem. I think.
And then for a long time the Korean media did not cover that.
Yeah,
I think it's only recently that people are gradually talking about it.
yeah.
And then I think when the media presents a more balanced, well, according to the Japanese professor, when the media presents a more balanced perspective, then we can form a more mature relationship. And I think that's one reason why the relationship between Japan and the United States is pretty good, because the media in both countries, they present a very balanced perspective. That yes, Japan did a lot of bad things to Americans, but Americans did a lot of bad things to Japan too. And so, you know, maybe we can both learn from our mistakes and, you know, build a better relationship. Okay. But time is running short. You have a quick question? I think for the most part, because Japan has both like newspapers like Yomiuri, which tends to be very conservative and nationalist, and also Asahi Shimbun, which is more like liberal and cosmopolitan. And then it was actually the Asahi Shimbun, the reporters, who uncovered much of the evidence about how the Japanese government was like complicit in the comfort women case, because before, you know, in the early days, the Japanese government said, no, these were all like private agencies who recruited the comfort women to serve Japanese soldiers. And that's true. There were a lot of private agencies, but the Asahi Shimbun found out that government agencies also played a role. And because they played a role, they have a legal responsibility. Okay, what's your name? Jose. Next time, come on up. Anyway, Jose is saying like, well, NHK, Yomiuri, they're very conservative, nationalists. They minimize Japan's bad things. They blame Koreans. I think that's probably true. But then at the same time, like Korean media and like Japanese media, there's a lot of like different voices. So I'm just saying that like imagine like Joseonilbo is a very conservative paper, the largest paper. What's the second largest? Yes. So imagine Junganilbo, who says like Korea's not all good. Look at all the bad things that Korea did. Okay. So if you had like Joseonilbo saying one thing, Junganilbo saying another thing, then you have a lot of good debate, right? But for the most part, Joseonilbo, Junganilbo, they say the same things about Japan, right? So I'm just saying like that's why Japan for me is a little different, because yes, the largest newspaper is very pro-Japanese, but the second largest, Asahi, is very critical. So I think because of that, you had a lot more like reflective discussion, right? Right. America is like opposite case. Like the largest newspaper, New York Times, is very critical. America's history is all bad. Anyway, that's New York Times. Okay, we only have like 5-6 minutes left. Anything else?